Right now, folks. Going live, going live.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Yeah, it's another Tony Caravan live.
Good morning.
And it's actually, I washed this hat. I am neither a fan of the Yankees nor a fan of New York anymore, though I lived in New York. And, I would have wished it were the way it were when I lived where I were. Caffeine, soda pop. If you've watched my previous morning show, you'll note that I was feeling a little under the weather. Wondering if I caught the plague, I don't know if I particularly did or didn't. I was a little fatigued and tired. I'm taking some aspirins and doing my antiviral regimen of taking garlic. I just had some cereal with a bunch of cinnamon on it. I did some some toasted oats with a little bit of maple syrup, pure maple syrup. You have to hoping it's pure maple syrup. You got to watch. I put honey in there too. It's supposedly pure honey. But this is another thing about the FDA that just gets my goat, the way one of my grandmothers used to say, is that they are so influenced by the people that produce the various substances that they supposedly review and make available. Sorry for scratching my mustache. That you can't trust them, and you say, well, that's a ridiculous blanket, outrageous statement. But the fact of the matter is good morning. I'm saying hi to somebody in the chat room. The reason you can't trust them and why it goes without questioning is just has to look at pharmaceutical drugs. The FDA is constantly approving pharmaceutical drugs. And so they approve a drug, it gets highly advertised on the media, right, for a couple of years or whatever. They send their beautiful women and Ken dolls to various doctors and hospitals to push this medicine on their patients. And then a year or two later, TV's filled with, if you took such and such drug and you died or your arm fell off, join the law firm of blah 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 and blah blah blah. There are $100 million available in damages or whatever. I am not a member of I am a spokesperson, not a lawyer. So it's I rest my case. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I remember seeing this. So the FDA every year, every so many weeks or every month or something is approving these various drugs and food and food. See, that's the scary part. Food and Drug Administration. People talk about GMOs, but they don't even understand any of that stuff. But it's they're approving a new box of cereal or the latest candy bar. It's just that that lobby's so strong with Congress. I guess the lawyers keep them off that. They don't say that. If you happen to eat such and such a cereal and your mouth exploded, your teeth fell out, call the law firm of, such and such and such and such. Excuse me. But yeah, so that's, like I say, I rest my case. I don't have TV anymore. I got rid of it because I got tired of it. Tired of the commercials, which are mostly either ads for drugs or ads about lawsuits about drugs, and in between some kind of political, all the political stuff, because politics never ends. And what I'm doing today, part of the show, we start out with some show and tell, and it's like, and this was an old memo pad of mine, and the further back distance you look, the cooler you get the grasp that what it was. It's not so much the content of it, but it's just like chick with breasts hanging out of her shirt. I wrote this screenplay once. Actually, I had somebody else who wrote it with. Though I must be honest, I'm not be honest. Truth be told is a better way of saying it. It was called Moguls. I don't know if you can see that. See how there's a jazz player there at the top and a couple dancing at the bottom. This is an old binder that I was keeping. So I used to keep my stuff in old binders. Anyway, here's the thing. This is really old. But anyway, for every success story, there are 99 failures. Produced by me. Anyway. That was a project I basically wrote the bulk of that screenplay when I was living in Capitol Hill at Roy Cohn's Capitol Hill townhouse. Put it closer to the camera. I think I already did. Okay. Anyway, I just was thinking about that yesterday. This has nothing to do with that, but this is kind of the feel of this is a rough artwork from this hotel I own. I talked about this in a previous video. It was the Park Hotel. The Improvisation. That was a long, long time ago. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else in here. See what I guess I ended up doing is this isn't really the screen. This isn't the screenplay. This would be the cards. When you make a movie, you usually have a wall filled with cards. Index cards. It's the best way to do it. Each one is a scene. So like, this would be exterior, outside diner, same time. Jack strolls by and catches glimpse of Lucy and Jim in booth. And the idea is you fill your wall, you basically have the whole movie on your wall at a glance. And then you can move around these various scenes and make sense. But plus you also, that's usually your workroom you set up, and so you can actually visualize the entire movie. People don't think about stuff like that. That's why computers aren't really a great aid in many of the traditional creative processes. Because they lack that ability, until they get to the point where they could create a virtual reality thing where you could put a headset on and immerse yourself in something. And we're not really at that point. I mean, it is possible to do that. But again, when when a machine is just emulating a thing that is easier to do, and you would have to do all this work for the sake of getting to that point, then what good is the machine? What's the purpose of the machine? We do that with a lot of things. We use computers. It's like extra work, right? Why have the note? Why do something that you could just have right in your hand? But in the case of these cards, and it doesn't matter if you're making a movie, a TV show, or laying out a restaurant tables or something like that. That's just I always give you these nuggets because I've done everything in my life. That's just a good idea. You just have a creative room somewhere, an attic, not addict. And excuse me, the soda off the mustache. It's a problem with having facial hair. And just use it as your creative room. And then you go in there, your writer's room, whatever, your writer's creation room. It's like an artist studio, put it that way. So for those who are starting out, watching this sometime in posterity, that may seem very obvious to some people, but to other people that would just not have dawned on them to do that. It's one of those things. Now, I found this as well. And this was something, these were some lines from Moguls. And the whole idea, Moguls, a blues film, quotes from the original screenplay. And the idea that on this, I guess, was a pit, something I was using in some pitches. This movie, there's a very interesting story behind this one. This movie, I mean, I registered with the Writers Guild and all that. This movie went into, I took this to New York. I just happened to be wearing a New York hat, and I wasn't thinking about that. Everything ties together. It's these things about these things I do. They all become circular. But I went to, I put it in workshop. And what workshop is, and I don't know if young filmmakers or writers today, and I'm sure that there must be having some of the guys might have workshop. I mean, the guy I was doing workshop with, I don't know if he's still around because he was older at the time. And he was, pro. And in a particular workshop I was in, there was, I don't know, there couldn't have been more than a dozen or so people. And the way that workshop worked was more than a dozen people, but not 24. The way the workshop worked is everyone came to the table with something. So people had various screenplays, whether it was like TV series, movies, things of that sort. I'm not sure if there were just some people in there who were actors or not. I didn't know. I don't know. Anyway, you had to meet with this director guy, and he interviewed you. He gave you this, it was like a pretty tough interview. This is like the Broadway type of, and it was on Broadway, like where, one of those Broadway places, offices type of place. And it was just like a very, in-depth, interview, going ripping right into your soul, to see if he was going to include you in this workshop. And you had to talk about yourself, why you were doing what you were doing, what your screenplay was about. He's just trying to clear out. He didn't want to have like morons in there. Somebody think, I'm going to write a movie. It was like he was, anyway. So I got accepted, which was great. And so I put Moguls into workshop. And what that means is that we all presented our individual scripts, screenplays, whatever, to the rest of the group. And then that's how I'm saying, this was real long time ago. I mean, we're talking like 35 or more years ago. That's how old this one. And that's why I couldn't remember if some people were just brought in as actors or if he brought in actors, like some just New York actors. But what would happen is they would act out in the end, after the workshop, was where you would present, your screenplay to everybody. These actors would act it out in front of the rest of the group. And then the group would critique it, of course, with, the director, obviously also involved in the critique process. And the idea was you put it in the workshop, and there's the idea to see if this thing could fly, because, if it, was worthwhile. And any movie or TV series worth its salt, as they say, should be in workshop. It's just like they have actors workshops too, but I mean, that's the best thing. And I really wanted to put this in workshop because this was a heavy, intense movie. Some of the criticisms towards the end of the workshop were that people said this was very reminiscent of 60s, French New Wave film, that kind of thing. So that's what Moguls really was. And it was a semi-autobiographical thing that revolved around, the reason I showed the picture of that nightclub that I used to own, a jazz club, was jazz and new wave, which was weird. But that's another story. Was because that's, I use that as, mentally as my setting as I was writing, even though I ended up, it was after the fact, after I let that place go, and I was living in DC at the time, like I said, on Capitol Hill. So I'm going to read a couple of these lines, and this isn't like pre-rehearsed or thought out. I just grabbed this thing. I forgot this was even in there. I knew, I haven't opened this binder. See, it's my Moguls binder. That's interesting. So let's see. The blues is losing someone you love and not having enough money to immerse yourself in drink. It's not exactly politically correct in this AA world. And okay, here's another line. So this is, what the hell are you doing? And the guy answers, I'm working on a case of 16 ounces. Okay, there's another one. Guy's holding up a bottle of, aspirin or something like that. What's the dosage? It says take 2 every 4 hours. Give me 6. That's one of my favorite lines. Pretty soon you're going to hate me so much that you'll start loving me. Another one, holding a cigar. They really are masters at Dutch Masters. This is not sponsored by Dutch Masters. I'm closing the club and taking the band on the road. I have layers of stress. I even owe a drug dealer $150. There's another one. The mirror lies. All right. I don't see why you have to crucify me over it. They ought to canonize me. What does a girl have to do to get to you? Deliver it warm in 30 minutes or less. These two lead characters were real characters. I mean, real characters, the way you call somebody, say, hey, that guy's a real character. That term, real character, in that context. So the movie was this blues film about, For every success, there are 99 failures. This movie didn't go like start here and go up. It didn't even really necessarily have too many highs in it. Okay. This movie well, I guess it started here, and let's pretend we move this up to here, that here is actually here. This movie goes like this. All right. Let's look again here at some more stuff. For some ridiculous reason, I love her. Happy Birthday, Man. That was a classic scene that used to occur around various holidays. There would always be like the most ridiculous things. There was one time there was a scene where the two characters, after having lost, this movie is constantly about loss. And there was one scene where the two characters had lost just about everything. And I think it might have been the closing, might have been the end of the movie. And they were sitting in a diner and having this, ridiculous conversation, and in fact, the conversation they were having was, about because it was about lost love, about lost dreams, lost, business ventures, lost everything. It all seems so useless. You spend time with someone, plan, hope, dream, and just like that, it's over. It's like death. She's with someone else now, not me. She'll never be mine again. We'll never make love again. So she's dead. I'd give up the blues for you. That was a big, big line. You're a slave to the phone. Nobody's going to call. Maybe they'll write. It's time the baby boomers grew up. That's a good line, too. What have I done for the past 15 years? Let's see what else we got here. She put the muleta on you. Anyway, it's Tony Caravan Live.
Good morning.
No really particular reason. I have the entire screenplay over there. Anyway, came out of workshop, reworked it in DC while I was doing some other things, and never went into production. I did have a problem with somebody who was present at the theory goes anyway. Somebody who was present at the workshop. I don't know why my mind's gone blank. Too early in the morning. It's 5:02 a.m. right now. That's why I call it the morning show, for no other reason. I woke up at 3 a.m. and just tried to lay in bed, tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. So I'm down here, I had a bowl of cereal, and
Here's what's happening.
And I figured I'd get into Here's What's Happening today. It's like almost a full moon out there. And here in the mid-Atlantic states, it's supposed to get up to about 50-some degrees today, which is pretty much a change if you've been watching these things every day. Just a couple of days ago, it was like 1 degree where I live. So a temperature change by, increased by 50-some degrees. That's like total insanity. I'm sorry about this. That's a problem when you get first thing in the morning, you just go live and you don't care. But like I always say, I'm a human being, so let's
Let's get this show on the road.
And let's get the show on the road. But that's just another one of those things, one of those Tony Caravan things. I have a bunch of those. And I don't know if I did an overview of moguls in one of my, 10 books or not. I might have included, I think I might have, may or may not have. I don't know. I don't remember. I co-wrote it with somebody who I basically used as like a sounding board. That's not to say that he didn't put some, interesting elements into it, but I more or less drew on part of his character, his personal character. That was the major contribution to it. While he may disagree with that, it doesn't really matter because the movie hasn't been made, and I doubt if it'll ever be made. And since nobody knows who this person is, that might be this be an interesting discussion, departure point. I had this person I knew, a friend, like from, like a school, somebody you knew since you were in school, like, high school, grade school type of thing. And, so, you know somebody that long, it's like, it's a lot different than just, people, later on in life, you make friends with neighbors, coworkers, or, whatever. It's a different thing. It's just kind of, you accept in other words, the mistake that is made. I mean, some people have these great friendships, lifelong friendships and stuff. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm not criticizing that. What I'm saying is that, there's different ways that people have friendships. And so if you happen to have one of these lifelong friendships, you stayed in, somehow stayed in the same area or something like that, that's cool. That's great. Some people marry their high school sweetheart, so to speak, and stay married for the rest of their lives and stuff like that. If that happens, more power to you, in many ways, for all the adventure that I've had traveling around the world and all over the country and all these ridiculous tales I tell, every now and then I still sometimes wish I would have just stayed in my hometown with with some girl from high school, got married and had a couple of kids and lived in a house and just, it's like that movie, The Family Man, the one with Nicolas Cage, where he sees what his life could have been like if he wouldn't have been gone out and been the Wall Street guy or whatever. And that movie really touched me from that standpoint, because I could totally relate to that. And the thing is, though, I mean, that was a good movie for that. Does that really, that capsulized, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that feel that way, but there's nothing you can do about it, and you can't live a life of regret. So, but I'm just saying, that's what I'm talking about. So anyway, so this particular character that was involved in this screenplay, when you know somebody that long, you kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, or you just take certain things for granted. Like you just take them, not take them for granted, but in other words, you're not necessarily paying attention to who they have become, so that you don't know. You just, I've always known them. The person, you knew them, you had laughs with them in school and stuff. You seem to know them your whole life. So you just assume that they're just the same, maybe happy-go-lucky, decent, nice person. You don't know that they may have, like, over the years, have actually gone, over to the dark side, so to speak. And in this case, I wasn't really paying attention to that part. I just was just like, this is somebody I always knew. We used to get together fairly frequently. If he had some girlfriend, visit them, let them visit me and stuff like that. I mean, his girlfriend was freaky and I knew there was a problem, something weird going on with that. Blah, 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 but you just never paid attention. Well, anyway, this is where it gets weird. So the guy ended up assuming my life, like it almost became my life. Like everything he did in his life was like, and when I thought back at it, I remembered. It's like, I had a radio show in high school. The principal of the high school was trying, because I was getting kicked out of school for running the underground newspaper and starting to grow a mustache. You weren't allowed to do that in like a private school and stuff. My hair was long. And so the principal of the school, his way of dealing with me was like, well, we got to redirect. And I guess in his mind, I'm putting thoughts into it. Let's redirect this creative mind into something that'll get him focused on, something that'll, whatever. So I guess he somehow knew the guy at the local radio station and got that guy to give me a Sunday night radio show literally on, the city radio station. And this other guy I'm talking about was my friend. I brought him along. Come on, you could, help out with the show. We could do this stuff, do that. But the guy had no thing in radio. Well, anyway, he ends up going to college and stuff and getting involved in, trying to get involved in radio. But it didn't, he got a radio degree or something. Not a degree, but communications degree. That was one of the things all colleges offered, was communications degrees. But basically, if I would have never taken him under my wing, the principal didn't offer him, that he didn't get, it was me. So after all that stuff, he got involved in some weird stuff. And I'm not going to give a biography of this guy because, I haven't talked to the guy in 25 years or something. Because the last time I saw him, his girlfriend stopped by someplace and I was loaning him money, helping them out for years. I helped them out. And I criticized her. She was doing something ridiculous at this place where I was that was basically causing potential problems with my neighbors and in the business I had and stuff like that. And I basically, I kicked her out. And he couldn't deal with that or something like that. I told you and you can't, whatever, and she was a freak. And if she's still alive, she's probably even freakier. I mean, everybody I knew said that. Is that guy with that freaky girl? Or there's that freaky. But anyway, so that's that. So that, I don't have seen this guy in 25 years. But he had reemerged when I had taken over a radio station in my hometown years later. I became the general manager of a radio station. And his life had gone, he basically got mixed up with all kinds of shady characters. In fact, he followed me out to California. And, I had been publishing things, right? And so I helped them put together the framework, taught them how to publish something, and he was publishing some rag in California for a little while, but then it flopped and failed. They couldn't see it through. He got involved. I was working at some place and I introduced him to some dude who knew some other guy who was kind of sleazy that I didn't want to deal with, was trying to, had some thing where he was taking actors that weren't working and getting them gigs at appearances at malls or something like that, And I remember telling him at the time that, and even the guy who was my business partner at the time, this guy used to come in. I go, I don't trust that guy. I said, that guy's up to no good. Well, anyway, the character I'm talking about, the screenplay guy, well, of course, I had no idea. You know, this guy had gone downhill, and this girl, I guess, was bad news for him, and somehow, and this guy got mixed up with this freaky guy. And somehow this guy got him, like, you know, he was driving a Corvette in LA, and I guess this girl came from, you know, that he was with was from a small town, you know, she was a hick. You know, it was like Bonnie and Clyde almost, you know, like really weird. And anyway, he ended up conning a couple of like actors, name actors who, I mean, they weren't big names, but they would be names you would know. And, you know, like having them where they flew to Las Vegas for some appearance or something like that. Well, anyway, the con man, the guy, I don't think ever got him this, Corvette or something like that to drive. Probably was a leaser thing or something. Apparently never paid for that. They would have chartered flights. He was bouncing checks for like a chartered flight to fly an actor to some appearance someplace. And I guess the one they got him on is, you know, in Las Vegas, you don't mess around in Las Vegas. Las Vegas, if you could get away with something in Poughkeepsie or other towns, but Las Vegas, you don't screw around in Las Vegas because that's money town, you know. And so he was involved in bouncing a check to, this guy he worked with, that they were bouncing checks to actors. They were bouncing checks for a flight, you know, private flights to different places and stuff like that. And I guess he bounced a check for some actor. I forget what show he used to be in, to have an appearance at some Vegas place, mall or some, I don't know, some stupid thing. And it bounced. The actor, tracked him down, whatever. And anyway, so this guy, Mr. Screenplay guy, he ended up in a Las Vegas prison. You know, they arrested him. So he did time in Las Vegas, you know, orange suit. And, you think he'd learn his lesson. So, you know, he copies me in the beginning from radio, right? Copies me, takes on my, I help him get a publication started. And so he copies me as like publishing guy. Then he goes off the deep end, like using one of my contacts to get linked up with some sleazebag that I warned him and I warned everybody about. I said, I'm a pretty good judge. I could tell when somebody's like up to no good. All right. Well, anyway, so for some reason, so like I say, the person your whole life, you're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. So he comes back to this town. At this point, I'm managing this radio station, and he's out of Vegas prison, apparently. Of course, and he's by himself. He didn't have that woman with him. And I'm thinking, okay, because she was bad news, she was that Bonnie to his Clyde or something. So maybe the guy's like between getting caught doing something and not having that, BH around him, that, I'll give him a shot. So I gave him a job at my radio station that I was managing. And it was just it was what's called traffic job. Basically, it's more like scheduling commercials, writing down song lists to report them. Like I was talking the other day about BMI, ASCAP and stuff like that. Basically it's kind of a semi-clerical job. But an important, it's a thing you have to do. And the guy had a college degree, so he's capable of doing it. And I gave him a show. so he could play music at, rock later on. Like I gave him like a couple hour, 2 hour show or something like that. At the end of the day, so I'd go out drinking, so I didn't have to hang around. I did a show. I did the lunch hour show. So I leave town. I'm done with that. I turned the radio station around. It was like had no ratings, and then it was doing very well and all that stuff. So I just told the owners outright. I said, "Okay, my job here's done," and I moved on. And that was that. Well, it turned out somehow he sleazed himself into, some deal with that radio station, because after apparently about a year or so after I left, the people that I left in charge of the place, rather than following, me, some people just don't like dynamic characters like I am. And, when I run a business, I run it like a well-oiled machine, but I run it in such a way that it's like, I'm always moving. And if you have this, I'm trying to think of the movie, there's another Hollywood movie that really would put this in perspective. It's a John Huston movie about, let me see if I can look it up quick here. I don't know if I can do this or not, because this will get the point across. Let's see. John Huston, just John Huston films. Let's see if we got a list of them. I know it was John Huston. That'd be John Huston. I don't know why I'm coming up with a blank. About Hollywood. John Huston about Hollywood. Sorry for this. I'm looking at something else, so you're seeing my face probably brightly lit because I am running. I'm attempting to find. I know it had to be a Huston. I'm sure it was a Huston film. I mean, I know he did the Maltese Falcon and all that stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, hate to admit it. Well, anyway, it was about this dynamic character who was head of the Hollywood studios. Maybe wasn't Huston. I thought I could have sworn it was. It was an ensemble piece. It never stopped. The camera was always just like following him around, and he was this guy. Okay, we'll do this. Let's get this. Let's do this. Get that. And that's how I was. And it was like, I would sit and have morning meetings. I've had a telephone before these cell phone things. I'd have a telephone right at my desk along the conference table, everybody in front of me, and I'd be saying, okay, did you talk to such and such? And they'd give me some excuse. I'd say, what's the guy's number? I'd get on the phone. Let's solve it now. Okay, done now. You do this. Let's get that done, right? There was no nonsense running and just do this. Well, apparently, certain people just can't. They think, oh, I could do better. He's too, people like they get jealous or they just can't. They don't understand the concept of a guy like that a dynamic CEO or management type that turns businesses around. You don't just sit there at a desk. It's like these people think managers or their bosses sit at their desk with their feet propped up reading, magazines or something. or whatever nowadays, playing with their cell phone. It's not the way it is. It's like American Psycho. That's what they think their boss is like. Anyway, the thing went downhill. And so somehow, I guess he and his brother or something like talked the owners into leasing the station or something from them or whatever. And so he was doing that. So like his entire life, I've lost track of him 25 years ago or something like that. But his entire life was basically, he was like trying to live he was like a shadow of my life, but he was doing it. I just say it half-assed and failed every time he did it. He was I think he was trying to publish something back in that town too. So anyway, that's that guy. And that's one of the reasons why I never made that movie, because I didn't want to make him a millionaire, basically, because I knew that he would drag along Bonnie, whatever her name was, I won't give the name out, but I didn't want to give Bonnie and Clyde, these criminals. And that's what I'm trying to say. So you might have an old friend and you have no idea that they turned into a criminal or a bum. And it turned out this guy was a bum. So, I know this is kind of a weird morning show, and that was like kind of a weird rant, but does it make sense? Do you grasping what I'm saying? And some people who don't live, big lives like I have, sometimes these things come as they're confusing. But when you are, when you're the man, you draw all kinds of people are trying to leech and latch onto you. And, it's, and you don't have time, you're busy living your life. So you don't have time to look at all these people and what, why are they, I didn't have time to, these people aren't on my mind, I'm trying to turn a radio station around. I'm not like, I don't care if it's old, I had some old friends working there or not. I was more interested in one of the sales girls who had super hot body that occasionally would come into my office and have sex with me in my chair. Yeah, right. Welcome to, welcome to the world of the high powered, media mogul. So anyway, that's that story. That really,
Good morning.
and I guess that's why that movie was never made, but who knows? Maybe I will do it someday if I don't die of the plague. Yeah, I had the fatigue, but I haven't had any loss of taste or anything weird. I'm going to go for a walk down to the supermarket, since I don't see what the temperature is right at this very moment right now. It's 30 degrees, which means the supermarket doesn't open until 7. So it'll probably be above freezing by that point, which is fine. And like I said, I glanced out part of my window in my bedroom and I thought it was a full moon. But when I looked really closely, it looked like it was like almost a full moon. That's another thing I can check out. Let's see. Phases of the moon. It's a morning show. Might as well tell you what's going on. Phases of the moon, time and date. Well, actually, time zone. That's not what I want. Phases of the moon. Full moon, February 27th. Okay. It's called the Snow Moon on February 27th, which is interesting. But I'll tell you, it's close to a full moon. So, I mean, today's the 24th, 3 days away, but it almost looks full. So that snow moon is going to be interesting. So, it's kind of semi-low in the sky. It's going to be fairly big. But yeah, I'm just kind of fatigued. I'm tired. And it's not just a sleeping thing. So I don't know. So I'm going to just keep, somehow incorporate as much garlic, ginger, and various other antiviral things. Apparently I should make a list. I don't like turning. My vanity, that side of the face thing looks ridiculous. I'm not spitting up or anything into that. I'm like half cleaning my mustache and half like trying to prevent myself from belching on the air. So please forgive me.
Good morning.
So yogurt is another thing. And while I'm on this, I might as well get into this. This is antiviral foods. And this is the stuff. Antiviral foods, top 9 antiviral foods. And if you ever do one of these searches on the internet, remember, don't go to one. You go to, that's what I need, some coconut. They say black walnut is like really good, but you ever try finding it? You can't. Well, anyway, some of the ideas are, I'm going to write them all down here. Get some green tea. But they say black tea is even better. But, you never see that either. And elderberry, right? Where do you ever see that? It's like they have lemon balm. That's it. So here's some of the things I just found. And of course, I didn't write on here garlic. That's like the number one. Now, remember how you prepare garlic. Garlic, you basically have to take a couple of garlic. You take a garlic clove, it's a thing wrapped in paper, or the whole garlic bulb, I guess. And then you pull off a couple cloves, like 3 or 4, but at least 3. And decent sized ones. And you smash them with the flat part of your knife. Pull off any paper. And then chop that up finely and let it sit for about 5 minutes. And it releases this stuff, this allicin or something. And that's has all these great properties for you. Yogurt, I guess you would want plain Greek yogurt would be, and I have no idea what it is in yogurt that's antiviral, but I guess it has something to do with some reaction in the gut. Green tea or black tea apparently has some sort of antiviral effects. Turmeric. And remember, if you take turmeric, which is based on curcumin, I guess, that you have to have black pepper with it for some reason in order for it to metabolize properly in your system. So if you just sprinkle the spiced turmeric on something, it's not going to do the trick. You got to have black pepper. And I've even heard that you had to have some kind of fat involved in it. Which could be just an oil, like olive oil or something we consider a fat that's kind of healthy for you. But, they're also saying things like ginger, which is good, coconut oil, which I don't know, where you would get that. Oregano, well, in the summertime, I have oregano leaves. The problem with oregano spice is that it's just dried out and you don't even know what it is. I've heard these stories about, getting back to, we opened this thing up with the FDA, is that there's another spice that they have that, that oregano that they substitute for oregano. I forget what that one is. But I wanted to finish that FDA thing when I was talking about pureness. They've been lobbied so hard by different groups that, excuse me, that apparently you can say pure honey or pure maple syrup, and it doesn't have to be 100%. They could say 100% pure or something like that, or pure, but it doesn't have to be that. They have some weird, standards that they've set up. So you might be buying something and thinking, oh, this is pure honey. Oh, this is pure maple syrup. But it might contain, some kind of sugars, whatever. It's vegetable, these various sugars that they create that are in everything. And you would think federal or the Food and Drug Administration, it's like terms of service and rules and regulations. They're not laws, but these lobbyists have, from the corporatocracy, as I call it, have been able to get all of these, apply such pressure on these so-called elected officials and bureaucrats. And you've got that revolving door, like you work at the FDA, then you work, at a pharmaceutical company or, some big ag company, right? And then you come back, 8 years later, a new administration, and you're back at working at the FBI or the FDA. And that's the same with the Wall Street, like, Securities and Exchange Commission, whatever, federal trade commissions. They're all like that, and it's a crime. And then it's the same as what's going on in politics right now. An administration changes, and so all these people from that, they voted out the last, they say they, every 8 years or every 4 to 8 years, there's a new administration, so to speak. And I don't want to get into specific politics or parties. So they clearly weren't doing their job, okay? The particular party, say 8 years ago or 12 years ago or 16 years ago or whatever. And so, a new party comes in, and with them, they bring in all their bureaucrats and all their heads of these various agencies and all this other kind of stuff. Well, then their time is up because it's, like I always tell people, to get caught up in politics and the way it is pop culture now in the U.S., though it's not the U.S., it's just the states, is ridiculous because every 4 to 8 years, it just bounces back and forth. So they undo what the last group of people did. So who's really in charge? Who are the people that don't change? The people pulling the strings in the corporatocracy. And that's why I say the world is a corporatocracy that's basically has these people, like the people in Brussels, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, Davos set, and so the corporatocracy is a consortium of other corporations within various what used to be called nation states, and the U.S. is just the states now, because we're not united. Everyone knows that. Anyone who pretends it's united, oh, we're going to unite, darn well there is no uniting, the states anymore. Red state, blue state. There's no uniting the states. Nothing. People say, well, maybe if there was a war, or Ronald Reagan, well, maybe if there was a threat from out of this world that could bring the people together. It's my Ronald Reagan imitation. But no, people are just totally ununited, and they're self-centered to begin with. So, but back to this whole idea of this, so it's a revolving door within DC, the Beltway. No matter what the administration is, no matter what the ideology, political party, blah, blah, blah is. And then it's a change of political party every 4 to 8 years. And the one does what the others did. And then they bring in these people that were more or less voted out, 8 years ago or 4 years ago. And then they hold hearings. Like I said, I don't have TV, but I have YouTube. So you can see the little cards, the title cards, on your recommended list or recently added, whatever the heck it's called. And so the title says it all. The picture and the title of the title cards, all you need to do. I'm not going to watch it. I don't want to know. I don't want to listen to a hearing about some guy being approved to be a head of some agency, who used to serve before. Because my idea is, well, you served before. What are you doing now? So that's the hypocrisy of the whole system. So the only people who are constant are the bureaucrats and, technocrats and the corporate guys, the corporatocracy, which basically the corporatocracy pulls the strings, and the level right below the corporatocracy is, the big financiers, these people who sit on multiple boards, and these big bureaucratic, like private governments, like the CIAs and the FBI and the DOJs and the DIAs and, the federal and these contractors, defense contractors and stuff. The people that don't change. And people think it's a big deal. They say, we're going to put a new attorney general in, new head of Homeland Security, a new head of border or whatever, a new head of the FDA, right? And it's like, yeah, but underneath that person, there's thousands and thousands of lifelong bureaucrats, basically can't even be fired, more or less, who just don't follow, just don't believe in it. They never believed in America. They never believed in the United States. They never cared. They think they are the government, and that's the world, and that's where we live, and that's how it is. And people just don't want to accept that. And so we live in a world where it's a corporatocracy. You're cattle on a tax farm or a consumer farm, whatever you want to call it, or both. The strings are being pulled by the corporatocracy people, and the politicians are down here on the lowest level rung, including like the president of the United States, the lowest level. It's not the leader of the free world. I say this all the time, but I have to repeat it because people still believe that. Congressmen, senators, they're all down here. Above them are the bureaucrats. And then above the bureaucrats are all the corporations and all these like big pharma, all the lobbyists, all those kind of corporations, and big tech and all that, and, people that own the media, not the media readers. And above that, and that's the forms the corporatocracy, which is a global type of thing. So anyway, that's all for today. This was kind of a different show.
Good morning.
I will talk to you again tomorrow since I have some things to do. Thanks for watching, as always. And hope you have a great day. Cheers.